three issues to consider post-retirement, and in some sense, I touched on that. And the first one, and perhaps the most important one, I see it all the time. I'm going to say more than half of my new clients experience that. This are again this generic plans. And usually what does that entail? The typical assumption is when someone is in his or her late 60s, maybe early 70s, by default, they have to invest more conservatively. Well, that is simply not true for everyone. On average, perhaps that is the case. I happen to agree with that. But what if that person is still working full-time or perhaps part-time? What if they have other sources of income? Of course, the first one that comes to mind is your Social Security income. What if they have pension income? And a good quarter of our clients are current or former government employees, so the part of the first system. There are many other personal factors. Perhaps they're expecting some kind of inheritance in the future. So there's no reason for them to automatically invest more conservatively. The other piece, which is also part of the same issue, you have to plan for the long term. In terms of the projections I discussed, we normally run them at least to age 95. So if you can imagine someone retiring, let's say at the age of 70, they still have 25 years ahead of them. So the money really needs to last for a long time. So that's number one. The third issue is more technical in nature. But again, when you have a plan, generic plan or retirement plan, well, exactly how are you going to draw from your accounts? Let's say you have a brokerage account, you have a traditional IRA, and you have a Roth 401k. I'll just, came up with this example. Exactly how and when are you going to draw from those accounts? And in many cases, that does boil down to, the overall tax efficiency and tax optimization of your portfolio. Again, in many cases, people just don't have that in place. And then the third piece, and usually that, mostly applies to, refer to this group as young retirees. Those usually between the age of, let's say, early 60s to age 73. And the reason I say 73, because that is your required minimum distribution age. That presents many opportunities to do things such as Roth conversions or backdoor Roth conversions. So what happened actually earlier this year, new clients that joined the firm, they have significant assets. The portfolio is doing well, no issues with that. The husband turned 72. So there's one more year before, he's going to collect his, or needs to take the funds out of his IRA. The wife is 73. Over the past 10 years, they did nothing about that. No Roth conversions, no tax planning of any kind. So I was blunt with them in our intro meetings. I was like, look, all of this assets that you have in appreciation, this is your tax debt. And you're going to be paying a lot when you retire. So keep those things in mind. In terms of gifting strategies, that usually comes up, not necessarily in the first meeting, but usually in the second, maybe third year, when people usually get more interested in that. I'll just say this: gifting cash is usually the least advantageous from the tax perspective. I don't mean it's a bad choice, but it's the least advantageous. If you have appreciated stock, that is a great choice. Let's say you want to gift some to the next generation. Perhaps they can keep the stock or they can sell it, and let's say they're in a lower tax bracket. If you gift it to a charity, they of course don't care what type of assets they receive, because they're not going to pay anything, and you still get a tax deduction. Many people are aware, but some are not. So I'll mention this. When you turn 73, and you can actually start doing this at the age of 70 and a half, you can gift a portion of your RMD, or required minimum distribution, to different charities. That can save you a lot in taxes, again, if you have the charitable intent. If you do not have any IRA accounts, or they're small and you just don't want to deplete them, but you still have the charitable intent, you can create a donor advised fund and transfer appreciated stock to the fund, so you can get a tax deduction in the year of contribution, and then decide in the future exactly what charities receive the money. So a lot of different ways, again, to satisfy your your charitable intent, and also save on taxes at the same time.
Alex, I have a question before we move on. Say you turn 73 and you have to start taking the required minimum distribution. With so many people living longer and working longer and delaying retirement, I suppose you could take that distribution and reinvest it somewhere else. Is that allowed? I mean,
Absolutely, Jan. This is such a great question. And sometimes people assume, that they have to take the money out, which is the case, and then in some sense they have to spend it. Well, not really. You just take the funds out, you pay taxes, and usually I recommend that you do that in October, November, maybe even in December. So you gain that additional year of tax deferred growth. And then you simply reinvest, the difference in your brokerage account. So you don't have to spend it
and
if you don't
and
need to.
earn more. That's awesome.
That's exactly right.